The Great Goldfish Escape. Once upon a time, in a quiet suburban neighborhood, there lived the Thompsons, a family of four: Dad, John; Mom, Linda; their 10-year-old son, Evan; and their 7-year-old daughter, Mia. Life in the Thompson household was pretty ordinary. Dad was a high school math teacher, Mom worked part-time at a local bakery, and the kids were busy with school, sports, and homework. Their life was so normal that even the most mundane events felt like milestones. But little did they know, their life was about to take an unexpected turn, thanks to a goldfish. This is the story of Bubbles, the goldfish, and the unforgettable chaos that ensued. It all started on a Saturday morning when the family made a spontaneous visit to the local pet store. They hadn't planned on bringing anything home, just a quick trip to get out of the house. But as soon as Mia laid eyes on the wall of sparkling fish tanks, her heart was set. "Daddy, look at the fishies." Mia squealed, pressing her face against the glass of the aquarium, her breath fogging up the display. Evan, trying to act cooler than his younger sister, feigned disinterest but couldn't help but ask, "Can we get one?" John, ever the practical dad, hesitated. "We can barely remember to water the plants. How are we going to?" Linda, on the other hand, saw the opportunity for a valuable life lesson. It could teach them responsibility, she said with a knowing smile. "Please, Daddy, please." Mia begged, her big eyes doing the heavy lifting. And so, after much deliberation and persuasion, the Thompson family walked out of the store with a small tank, some colorful pebbles, a plastic castle, and their new goldfish * bubble star. Bubbles quickly became the centerpiece of the Thompson household. Every morning, the kids would rush downstairs to see if their fish. Evan, who had never been particularly interested in pets, became a self-appointed expert on goldfish care. He Googled everything from how to tell if your fish is happy to "Can goldfish hear you talk?" Mia, on the other hand, treated Bubbles like her tiny, scaly best friend. She would sit next to the tank, telling Bubbles all about her day at school and her adventures on the playground. She even tried feeding Bubbles tiny bits of her lunch, much to the horror of her parents. Linda, as the mom, kept a closer eye on the tank's cleanliness. She wasn't about to let the family's new responsibility turn into an algae-ridden disaster. And John, well, he remained skeptical. "It's just a fish," he would say, though he could often be caught watching Bubbles swim with a strangely amused expression. Things were calm. Peaceful, even. Until the great escape happened. It was a dark and stormy night. The family had just finished dinner, and Mia had fed Bubbles a little extra food, feeling generous. After a long day at work, John was grading papers, Linda was watching a baking show, and the kids were upstairs, getting ready for bed. The sound of rain pattered gently against the windows, and everything seemed perfectly normal. But Bubbles had other plans. Now, goldfish are known for being not particularly bright. But Bubbles had apparently been plotting something that no one in the Thompson household could have predicted. Whether it was the excess food, the rainstorm, or just sheer boredom, Bubbles decided it was time for adventure. With a little too much energy, he swam towards the surface of the water and, in a spectacular display of athleticism, flung himself out of the tank and onto the nearby table. And there he flopped, gasping for air. Linda was the first to notice something was amiss. She had gotten up to grab a snack from the kitchen when she heard a soft, rhythmic thud. Frowning, she followed the sound to the living room. Her eyes widened when she saw Bubbles flopping on the table, perilously close to the edge. "Oh my gosh! John!" she screamed, racing over to the table. John, who had been deeply engrossed in marking a particularly confusing algebra test, jumped up in alarm. "What happened?" "The fish. He's escaping." John rushed over, grabbing a towel from the kitchen and carefully scooping up the floundering Bubbles. What on earth? By this point, the kids had heard the commotion and came running down the stairs. "What happened to Bubbles?" Mia cried, wide-eyed with panic. "He's trying to run away," Evan declared, impressed. "I didn't know fish could do that." John managed to get Bubbles back into the tank where he floated, dazed but alive. After Bubbles' dramatic attempt at freedom, things got a little tense in the Thompson household. Mia took it upon herself to keep a close watch on the fish at all times, convinced that Bubbles might try another escape. She even started leaving her night light on at bedtime, afraid that in the dark of night, Bubbles might hatch a new plan. Evan, naturally, saw this as an opportunity to experiment. Maybe Bubbles wants to see the world. We should take him out and let him explore, he suggested, much to the horror of his parents. No one is taking the fish out of the tank, Linda said firmly, now doubling down on tank safety, taping down the lid just in case Bubbles made another leap for freedom. John, meanwhile, couldn't help but find the whole thing amusing. I guess he's more than just a fish after all, he said with a chuckle. In the days that followed, Bubbles became something of a legend at the Thompsons' house. Evan made up stories about his daring escape, telling his friends at school that Bubbles was actually a secret agent, part of an elite Goldfish task force. Mia made drawings of Bubbles wearing a tiny superhero cape, which she taped to the fridge. Even Linda and John couldn't help but laugh about the bizarre incident over dinner. Bubbles, of course, had no idea what all the fuss was about. He continued swimming lazily around his tank, blissfully unaware of his brief moment of fame. And while he never made another escape attempt, the Thompsons would always remember the night their goldfish decided to break free. In the end, Bubbles wasn't just a pet. He became a part of the family, an unexpected source of laughter, excitement, and the occasional panic. And while he may have been just a small fish in a small tank, in the eyes of the Thompsons, Bubbles would forever be the goldfish that dared to dream. Months later, the Thompsons were out shopping for groceries when they passed the pet store again. Mia stopped in her tracks, peering inside at the tanks. "Daddy," she asked thoughtfully, "do you think Bubbles is lonely? Maybe we should get him a friend." John sighed. "I'm not sure we're ready for another escape artist, kiddo." But despite his skepticism, they walked into the store once again, ready for whatever new adventures lay ahead, because in the Thompson household, you never knew when life was about to get a little fishy.